The door slammed at 2 a.m., rattling my four-pole and jolting me from the shallow fog that had cocooned my mind since the accident. Somewhere in the hallway, a nurse's footsteps squeaked before fading away. I lay perfectly still, breath shallow, listening to Emily's voice cutting through the quiet. I never thought Michael would wake up. I assumed he'd stay asleep forever. Beneath her words, I recognized another voice, David's, soft with regret. Emily, I had to be here. I didn't know how else to. I never meant to hurt him. My heart thundered so violently I felt it in my throat. The respirator hissed and the heart monitor's steady beep echoed in my ears. A metallic taste, stale coffee and old blood, flooded my mouth. My head throbbed like a warped drum. I clenched the blanket, stiff-arming my panic, straining to remain motionless. If they suspected I was awake, everything would shatter. Stay silent. Breathe. I pressed my forehead into the pillow, eyes focused on the ceiling tiles, white squares that blurred together as my pulse hammered the rhythm of betrayal. The antiseptic scent of the hospital room burned in my nostrils, mingling with the faint tang of aluminum from the four-pole. Each beep of the monitors felt like a careless drumbeat mocking my pain. Emily's footsteps receded, her voice trailing into the corridor. I never thought Michael would hear me say that. A wave of nausea, hot and bitter, rippled through me. My body was weak, broken by the crash that should have killed me, but my mind crackled with stunned rage. She'd believed me comatose forever, sharing herself with my own brother. I forced myself to inhale through my nose, tasting nothing but the tang of hospital air. The click of rubber-soled shoes passed by the door, a nurse returning with late-night meds, oblivious to the catastrophe just revealed. I loosened my fist on the blanket and flexed my fingers, fighting dizziness. Each movement sent tendrils of pain through my chest, but I forced my breathing into rhythmic control, matching the steady tick of the watch on my wrist. You're alive. Use that. Slowly, I flexed my toes, willing circulation back into my legs. The four-tube tugged at my arm, a constant reminder of my fragile state. Inch by inch, I lifted my elbow and pushed my palm into the mattress, sliding into a semi-sitting position. My head spun, I blinked through the haze. When Emily had made that confession, she thought I was gone, and now I was poised between life and fury. Another whisper echoed from beyond the door, David's voice, urgent. Stay with me. Please. Even muffled by the wall, those words felt like salt on a wound. My chest tightened. I tested my strength again, shifted my hips, then my legs. Pain flared, but beneath it, a spark of determination ignited. I would not remain a broken man in a bed while my family unraveled. A nurse's head appeared at the door. She pushed the door open and frowned. Mr. Anderson. You're pilling the sheets. I let my eyes flutter closed. Just an itch. She leaned in to adjust my respirator, and I sucked in a hiss of oxygen. The lie tasted bitter, but it kept Emily from realizing I'd heard everything. She checked my then slipped back into the hallway, her footsteps receding once more. As the door clicked shut, I lowered myself against the pillow until the monitor's beep steadied. Every fiber of my being ached, yet I felt a single, fierce resolve settling in my chest. I would rise from this bed, piece together the truth, and protect my children from the betrayal that had taken root. I opened my eyes and saw the 4-line drip chamber, each droplet a countdown to my next breath. I focused on the second hand of my watch, tick, tick, a reminder that time persisted, indifferent to my agony. My mind raced through our shared memories, Saturday pancakes, Emily's laughter, Ethan's wide grin, Lily's tiny fingers grasping mine. Those moments once anchored me, now they stung with betrayal. Yet I forced those images aside, forging a new path, gather proof, shield my kids, and reclaim our family's future. I flexed my toes again, then my legs, muscles trembling but obedient. In the dim glow of the corridor light filtering through the door crack, I braced myself for the struggle ahead. Emily thought I'd remain unconscious, silent and broken. She was wrong. The midnight confession was my starting gun. My pulse steadied into a slow, controlled rhythm as I whispered to the dim room, I hear you. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the spark of action ignite within me, no longer a victim but a man ready to fight. I lay in my hospital bed long after the sterile lamps dimmed for the night, the 4-line dripping steadily into my arm. The rhythmic tick of my grandfather's watch against my wrist was strangely comforting, proof that despite everything, time still moved forward. As I closed my eyes, memories flooded in, each one a splinter reminding me how deeply I'd been deceived. Sunday mornings. The scent of maple syrup still lingers in my nostrils. Emily would stand at the stove, flipping pancakes with an effortless grace. Ethan, all lanky ambition, hovered at the island in his worn football jersey, foam finger cocked for another dunk of syrup. Lily toddled around, clutching her stuffed owl, her eyes wide as she yanked on her mother's skirt. The hum of the coffee maker would fill the kitchen, steam rising like soft smoke in early light. I'd lean against the counter, wrapping my arms around Emily's waist, her laughter ringing clear as church bells. Now, the hospital's antiseptic odor replaces that warmth. I tasted the coppery tang of old blood. The beep of the monitor reverberated in my chest, a distant echo of my own heartbeat. I smelled the faint scent of Emily's candle, pine and lavender, from last week, bittersweet and distant. Lily's laughter had once been the soundtrack of our home. Tonight, I only heard hushed whispers through the adjacent door. The day of the accident. I'd been driving Ethan to football practice, the sun spilling across Lakeshore Drive. Emily called just as we reached the red light. "He's fine, babe, just slight fever. I'll meet you at the game tomorrow." I'd smiled, imagining her perched in the bleachers, cheering Ethan on. Skidding tires, metal crunch, then darkness. Waking in this bed was supposed to be our second chance. Instead, I discovered the betrayal that had blossomed while I lay comatose. A soft rustling roused me, Emily entering quietly. I held my breath as she approached the bedside, her hand trembling above my arm. The scent of her perfume, sweet and floral, stung my senses. I fought the urge to open my eyes, to see the truth reflected in hers. Instead, I sifted more memories. Bedtime stories. I remember tucking Ethan into his bunk, crimson sheets plastered with little footballs, reading to him from his favorite book about a courageous knight and a clever dragon. Lily would snuggle beside him, clutching her owl, eyes drooping as I traced the lines of the illustrations. Emily's gentle hum would accompany us, her voice a lullaby drifting through the hallway. Those were the moments I thought would last forever. Now they felt tainted by the silences I'd ignored. I recalled discovering a crumpled hospital receipt in Emily's purse last month, marked with David's apartment address. She'd explained it away. Brother David needed flowers after my uncle's funeral. I'd accepted it, because I wanted to believe in her unwavering loyalty. The smell of lilies and roses had smelled comforting then. Now, I saw it as a red flag I willingly dismissed. Anniversary rituals. Our 10th wedding anniversary had been magical. I'd surprised Emily with a weekend getaway, a cozy B&B in Michigan, 2 rocking chairs on the porch overlooking a quiet lake, candles flickering in the twilight. We'd shared a quiet dinner of chicken piccata, wine a soft ruby glow in our glasses. Afterward, we danced slowly to our song Under the Stars, Ethan up late in the B&B's room, and Lily's small snores echoing down the hall. Emily's head had rested on my shoulder as we swayed, her eyes half closed, content. Now, months later, I saw her smile in that memory as a mask. Beneath it, something had shifted. A nurse's subdued footsteps outside the room drifted in, and I flexed my fingers on the crisp sheets. The smell of antiseptic clinging to my gown snapped me back. Lily's stuffed owl lay on the bedside table. My wife had insisted it stay close to comfort me. I reached for it, pressing the soft fabric to my cheek. Her innocence contrasted so sharply with Emily's betrayal. Late-night phone calls. I replayed nights when I'd been home, still weak, and heard Emily's phone buzz on the coffee table. She'd offer a quick, just a text from a colleague, and slip into another room. Once, I overheard a hushed, "I can't wait to see you at the lake house," but chalked it up to innocent family talk. That whisper should have alarmed me. Instead, I'd closed my eyes against suspicion, forging a fragile peace. Now, each memory burned like acid. The creak of the bed frame as Emily shifted on her rounds, the soft click of her heels echoing down the hall, I let those sounds pour into me, sharpening my awareness. Ethan's football playbook lay on the nightstand by my bed, dirty turf stains on the corner, a reminder of days I dreamed I'd soon rejoin him on the sidelines. Unexplained expenses. Emily's credit card charges to David's apartment, shared grocery bills, streaming service fees neither of them needed, surfaced in my mind. I recall questioning her once, why so many groceries at his place? She'd smiled, cheeks flushed, "He's letting me help him feed the construction crew." I'm just trying to pitch in. I nodded, bought her excuse. Tonight, I saw it as another stitch in a tapestry of deceit. The overhead lights dimmed further as the night shift settled in. My monitor beeped a steady rhythm, matching the tick of my watch. I tapped its face, 12:45 a.m. My pulse surged, and I let the memories lie still for a moment. The imagery of pancakes, bedtime stories, and anniversary waltzes blurred into a collage of everything I would fight to salvage: my children's trust, my own sense of self. I inhaled, tasting the night's antiseptic astringency mingled with the faint echo of Emily's perfume. My fingers tightened on the owl's plush fur. The past is evidence. The future requires action. I flexed my wrists, feeling strength flicker beneath the IV's constraints. As I sank back into the pillow, I whispered to the silent room, I will prove it. I will protect them. The watch ticked on, each clinical beep echoing purpose. The time had come to move beyond suspicion and into strategy. And though my body felt fragile, my resolve felt unbreakable. Tomorrow, I would begin gathering proof. Tonight, I would steel myself for the battle ahead, channeling grief and doubt into a calm, relentless pursuit of truth. And somewhere in the hush of the hospital, I felt the first sparks of clarity light my path forward. My grandfather's watch ticked relentlessly as I lay in the hospital bed, scanning the reporter's email feed on my phone's dim screen. The private investigator's report, photographs time-stamped at the lake house, glowed like a conflagration in the dark. Emily and David, wrapped in each other's arms under the waning sunlight, oblivious to the world. Beneath those images, transcripts: I can't believe you're really here, let's leave it all behind, when he wakes, he'll find his world gone. My chest tightened, each word slicing through me. Rage and grief warred, but beneath them a cool resolve crystallized. I'd fought to draw breath, now I'd fight to reclaim my life. I propped myself upright and swung my legs over the side of the bed. My muscles protested, but I relished the burn. Every limb that ached was a reminder I was alive. I flexed my toes against the crisp hospital sheets, pivoting to the edge. The four tugged, but I gripped its pole and pushed off. My watch caught the pale morning light streaming through the window, 7:02 a.m. Each tick felt like a challenge, an invitation to act. 1. Gathering evidence. By mid-morning, I met Mark at his downtown law office. The sterile hum of the air conditioning and the faint scent of old leather-bound books greeted me as I rolled into his inner sanctum. He met my gaze, eyes sharp with concern, before I laid the investigator's folder on his desk. Photos of Emily and David at the lake house, her head on his shoulder, his hand on her waist. Beneath them, printouts of their texts, dates spanning 6 weeks, late-night rendezvous, flighty declarations of love, plans to meet, where no one would find us. This is worse than I feared, Mark said, running a finger down the transcript. They made plans to isolate themselves, believing you were gone. I exhaled slowly, steadying my voice. They thought I'd never wake. I need steps, legal, personal. The kids. They can't be left unprotected. Mark nodded. First, we file a petition for temporary custody of Ethan and Lily. You need exclusive physical custody. Next, we subpoena David's phone records and bank statements, any transaction tied to the lake house or these rendezvous. We'll also obtain the hospital visitor logs that show late-night entries under David's name. He slid me a set of forms, custody affidavits, injunction requests, subpoenas. As I unfolded the papers, I felt my chest tighten. These documents were the armor I'd build around my children. I also want to place a lock on their accounts, Mark continued, so Emily can't siphon money. And coaching logs from Ethan's team, anything that shows David's excuses. I nodded, scanning the crisp text. Each clause etched a line between my pain and the fortress I would construct. 2. Securing the children. Before leaving the office, I called the children's school counselor, Mrs. Jacobs, to arrange immediate therapy sessions for Ethan and Lily. Her voice was gentle but grave. I'll meet them today, she assured me. They need a safe space to process this. I felt a pang. For every therapy hour I'd pay for, I'd pay with the currency of betrayal. But I'd give any price for their well-being. Back home, I found Emmy's backpack by the front door, football cleats peeking out. In the living room, Lily's dollhouse lay abandoned, a tiny front door ajar. The silence echoed the breach that had opened in our family. I glanced at the watch, 9:15 a.m. Time to fortify our lives. I gathered Ethan and Lily in the kitchen. Ethan, at 12, could read the tension in my eyes. Lily, 5, sensed my unease. I crouched to their level, catching their gaze. "Hey guys," I said, voice deliberate and warm. "Mom's having a hard time right now. We're going to spend the day with Mrs. Jacobs at school. Daddy's got some grown-up stuff to handle, okay?" Ethan's jaw clenched, as if he'd suspected. Lily's lower lip quivered. "Are you going to be okay, Dad?" Ethan asked quietly. I nodded, forcing a smile. "I'm okay. I just need to keep us safe, that's all." As they headed out, I felt the weight of their trust press on me. I collected Emily's phone from the coffee table, her WhatsApp still open to David's messages, and slipped it into an evidence envelope. I draped the dopamine-staining gown over the back of a chair, a symbol that the man who had returned to life would take control of his fate. 3. Securing proof and building a case. I spent the afternoon in a rented office, arranging the evidence into color-coded folders. Folder A, Hospital Visitor Logs, David's entries at 2 a.m., 3:15 a.m. Folder B, Text Transcripts, Messages spanning 6 weeks, Midnight Declarations, Morning Goodnights. Folder C, Financial Records, Online transfers from our joint account to David's mortgage payment, florists, the lake house utilities. Folder D, Private Investigators Photos, Emily and David sneaking into the lake house, their silhouettes entwined. Each folder felt like a weight I lifted onto my shoulders, a burden, yes, but also an anchor. With each document placed, the path forward grew clearer: document the betrayal, protect my kids, press charges if necessary. At Mark's suggestion, I also met briefly with Chief Russell at the local police precinct. He reviewed the PI's photos and agreed to open an investigation into elder abuse of trust and potential financial exploitation, categories I hadn't considered. "We'll assign a detective," Russell said, flipping through the photos. "But your focus needs to remain on the kids. Let us handle the criminal angle." Knowing law enforcement had my back offered a measure of relief. I strapped the watch back onto my wrist, its second hand ticking like an ally. 4. Calculated encounters and psychological tactics. That evening, I needed to confirm David and Emily's next move. I emailed the PI, requesting round-the-clock monitoring of the lake house entrance. Meanwhile, I drafted a text to Emily from my recovery account, an alias, to test her response. "Hey Em, I'm awake, trying to piece things together. We need to talk about our family." Moments later, her reply appeared: "I can't do this via text. Can we meet?" I saved it as evidence and drafted a second text. "Tonight, in the living room, just the two of us. 9 p.m. sharp. I'll bring the kids." I didn't intend to keep the appointment, I needed to gauge her reaction. Her response was a flurry of denial, surprise, and an eventual okay. I archived it. Each message would be Exhibit X. Then I prepared for the legal confrontation, printed the custody petition, the restraining order application, and an outline of my confrontation script, a calm, unflinching delivery of the evidence before Emily and David, with Ethan and Lily present. I rehearsed in the mirror: insert proof, state my demands, protect the kids. Every syllable measured, each pause loaded with purpose. 5. Calming the rage. Late at night, exhaustion gnawed at me, but I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, white and blank, marveling at how life had warped, love turning to deception, brotherhood to betrayal. I poured a glass of water, tasted the cold weight of it on my tongue, and tried to swallow the swirl of emotions within me. My watch ticked, 11:47 p.m., the same minute David had texted Emily, when I thought he was gone. I realized I needed you. I closed my eyes and let the memory of Ethan's grin wash over me, how he'd exclaimed, "Dad's best day," when I coached his flag football game before the accident. Protecting that grin, that laughter, became my North Star. I pressed my palm over the watch face: "You're my anchor." My resolve sharpened: tomorrow, I'd file the custody motion. I'd deliver the confrontation, calm, controlled, with evidence I'd assembled. And I would ensure that Emily and David faced the consequences of their choices without squandering my children's trust or their own integrity further. As the hospital lights dimmed and the ward settled into a hush, I felt a grim satisfaction. Betrayal had revealed itself, and now, every step I took would be deliberate, precise, and unrelenting. I lay back, the watch's steady tick a promise. I would not only survive, I would reclaim my life. The hallway outside our living room felt suffocating, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows through the blinds. My grandfather's watch ticked against my wrist as I wheeled into the foyer, heart hammering, every nerve alight. Ethan hovered near the doorway, eyes wide, arms folded protectively around Lily. Their small figures anchored me to purpose. I would not let them witness more than necessary, but they deserved the truth. Emily sat on the couch, her posture stiff, and David lounged beside her, his expression flickering between guilt and defiance. The moment I entered, their conversation hushed. I planted my wheelchair in front of the coffee table and cleared my throat, forcing my voice calm. Emily, David, thank you for meeting us. Emily's face paled, she opened and closed her mouth, searching for words. David's fingers drummed nervously on his knee, turf dust still visible, a silent testament to their secret distractions. I reached to the table and picked up the private investigator's photographs, Emily's head resting on David's shoulder at the lake house, time-stamped late last Tuesday. I laid them face up. These started 6 weeks ago, I said, holding a still shot of them kissing behind the dock. You thought I wouldn't wake? Emily's eyes flicked down. David's jaw clenched. Their silence hung in the air like a noose. Ethan took a step forward, confusion mingling with fear in his eyes. I met his gaze, then turned back to them. I heard your confession, both of you, through this wall. My voice barely rose above a whisper, but the weight of it pressed into the room. Emily, you said you assumed I'd never regain consciousness. Emily swallowed, tears brimming. Michael, I thought you were gone. I was scared. Scared of what? I asked, voice steady. Scared to face our life. Scared to stand by your vows. David's shoulders sagged. I loved her, I was there for her when he trailed off. When I lay in a coma, vulnerable, I finished, tone icy. You betrayed me, your husband, and our children. I pushed aside the next stack of evidence, printouts of text messages. I can't let him hold me again, sent at 1:12 a.m., my heart broke when they pronounced him gone, sent at 2:03 a.m. They were my own wife's admissions, inked in cold digital form. Lily whimpered and Ethan knelt to her level. Dad, what's happening? Ethan's voice cracked. I felt a stab, my heart twisting for their innocence. I crouched, meeting Ethan's eyes. Sweetheart, Mom and Uncle David made some bad choices while I was hurt. They believed I wouldn't wake up. Ethan's face reddened, Lily clutched her owl, tears glimmering. I wrapped them in a protective hug, holding them close. Their small sobs punctuated the hush. Putting a hand on their shoulders, I rose and turned back to Emily and David. Kids, wait in the hallway, please. I'll be there soon. They retreated, hand in hand, pausing at the threshold. Ethan's glance back said everything, we're with you, Dad. I nodded once. Once they were out of sight, I focused on Emily. Her shoulders shook, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Emily, you looked me in the face when I first woke and promised to stay. Yet behind my back, you found comfort with my own brother. She bowed her head. I'm sorry. I never meant for you to. Save it. I snapped, then exhaled as if releasing poisoned air. Your apology doesn't erase the truth. I lifted our wedding portrait from the mantel, a smiling me, Emily, Ethan, Lily beneath an autumn canopy. I turned it face down on the coffee table, closing off that chapter. The glass frame reflected the room's tension in a fractured pattern. This image is a lie now, I said, voice low. It hid what you were doing. David opened his mouth, but I held up the next piece of evidence, hospital visitor logs showing him at my bedside at 2:30 a.m. and 4:12 a.m., long after Emily claimed she was home with the kids. You two conspired to give each other comfort while I fought for my life. Your betrayal affected me, yes, but also Ethan and Lily. Emily's sobs filled the silence. David's gaze lowered to the floor. The kids will need therapy. I will pursue custody. You will pay for every penny of it. I slid a printed custody petition to the center of the table, temporary custody, supervised visitation, financial restitution. Emily's hands trembled as she reached for it. Michael, please. No more please, I said. Just sign here. She let tears fall as she scrawled her name. David regained composure for a moment, offered a weak apology. I refused to soften. In the hushed finality of that room, their composure crumbled into guilt and shame. My resolve stood firm. I had protected my children's world and laid bare the betrayal. I gathered the evidence, turned toward the hallway, and found Ethan and Lily waiting, eyes swollen but trusting. I led them out, hearts in sync, leaving the wreckage of deceit behind. 3 weeks later, I sat in the cramped mediation room, the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead echoing my steady heartbeat. My grandfather's watch ticked on my wrist, a reminder that time never stopped, even when our lives fell apart. Across the table, Emily's shoulders slumped, eyes hollow as she signed the final custody agreement. I followed suit, sole physical custody of Ethan and Lily, Emily's visits strictly supervised, and a financial trust to ensure their well-being. No dramatic words, no last-minute pleas, just the pen's firm click marking the end of our marriage. I stood, rose the watch in a silent salute, and nodded to the mediator. Ethan slipped his hand into mine, Lily wrapped her small fingers through my free hand. We exited together. Outside, the late afternoon sun bathed everything in gold. I inhaled deeply, tasting a faint sweetness amid the lingering bitterness. This day marked our liberation. Back home, I paused at the threshold of the living room. Our once bright family portrait sat on the mantel, Emily and me, arms around each other, Ethan and Lily in front, all smiles beneath autumn leaves. My fingers closed around the frame. I lifted it, wiped the dust from the glass until it gleamed, and then turned it face down, hiding those frozen grins. In its place, I laid a new photograph, Ethan and Lily at the park last weekend, chasing each other as they laughed under a summer sky. Their joy was untainted by deceit. I retrieved a small velvet box from my nightstand, inside, Emily's wedding ring, cool and circular, once a symbol of our vows. I placed it on the mantel beside the face-down portrait. In that silent gesture, I acknowledged what was lost and reclaimed my sense of self. The ring's empty circle felt like a promise, I would find wholeness again. Later, as dusk settled, I settled on the living room sofa with my laptop. I opened a new file, titled it Fractured Vows. My first entry chronicled our story, my accident, the betrayal, the fight to protect my children. I wrote with measured clarity, avoiding melodrama. Below the text, I added a photo of my grandfather's watch being wound, a caption, "Time demands truth." I hit Save Draft, knowing I would publish soon to guide others through similar darkness. A soft knock at the door announced Mark, offering cups of chamomile tea. I accepted one and thanked him for his support. Ethan and Lily popped into the room, Ethan holding his playbook, Lily clutching her stuffed owl, and flopped beside me. Ethan leaned in, voice hopeful, "Dad, will you coach my game this weekend?" I smiled, my chest swelling with quiet pride. Wouldn't miss it for the world. I roughed his hair and turned to Lily, planting a gentle kiss on her forehead. Her sleepy smile lit the room more than any sunshine. As night fell, I closed my eyes and felt the steady tick of the watch against my wrist. The betrayal still stung, but its poison had lost its hold. I had reclaimed my children's future, rebuilt our home on truth, and honored my own resilience. In that moment, I realized revenge was never about vengeance, it was the mastery of one's own life. And tomorrow, we would live it together.